Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Feinstein with another entry to Hasidic Nurses Notes. Today is the 16th of June, and in the Hebrew month, we started a new month called Tammuz. It's the first day of the month of Tammuz. So, to begin with, there's a tendency for human beings, normal human beings, to search for consistency, laws that will apply at all times, rely on, fall back on. And every time you might think you have one, you in the scientific law, you find some exception to the rule, or there's a new discovery, like, for example, with the discovery of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, that shed a new light on how people look on things. Einstein's theories, not that I know them so well or at all, but um, just for example, and also with philosophy. The other thing I heard when I was I guess in junior high, the term mores, that in a community, one community, a certain type of conduct could be considered normal or acceptable. In other communities, unacceptable. Even in Jewish law, some laws which seem to be absolute, there can be exceptions to that rule, depending on the circumstances and depending on the nature of the law. So therefore, you believe. What can you believe? And that's basically why Judaism, Hashem, at the time of giving you the Ten Commandments in the Torah, the written Torah, and as more of the written Torah was given, it still required the Talmud or the oral law, which was given at the same time. Otherwise, the absolute would be impossible to follow at times because there are some gray areas. Um, some very light gray, some very dark gray, and maybe some very pure as well. There are a few that barely can there be an exception if at all. Now, and so therefore, where do we go? What do we believe in? So therefore, the foundations of Judaism take it almost to the top, where the absolute entity is God. As I've mentioned before and often, the three phrases which are characteristic of that. One is Ein Od Milvado. There's no place and nothing outside of God. The second thing is that God controls the world, and you learn the laws of creation according to Judaism and the Torah beliefs that His creating the world puts him in contact with everybody at all times, and awareness of that. And coupled with that is the fact also that not just here and getting through life, or whatever one might kind of conjecture is the goal, but we have a goal and we have a purpose and we have a partnership with God. So whatever He commanded us to do, whether it's a Noahide level or the level of people who are born Jewish or converted by proper Orthodox conversion, that we have our job description for the partnership and for a very positive outcome with the final redemption of the revelation of Mashiach guiding us. So it's like coming towards Noahide, or if a person does convert, it's not like there's going to be an absolute, wow, I found it, and all my questions were resolved. Question, what could be said is that whatever happens to us, we recognize God in it, and we recognize that there's a purpose for what we experience. I remember that someone approached me, or that I knew from before I became religious, and they said, I guess now you become religious, everything makes sense, and you have a purpose, and things are working better because you're making better decisions according to the wisdom of Jewish law. And I said, well, I don't know if I can agree with theory or with your description. Things don't necessarily get easier. They become different. And a nice example from the Torah, the Talmud, is a story where during the Roman occupation, and by the way, this despite some of the historical presentations I've seen, the Romans were very brutal concerning, especially concerning religious observance. There was a ban on learning Torah, complete. There had to be subterfuge, and people took their lives at risk to teach Torah, and people wanted it. So Rabbi Akiva, one of our greatest rabbis, Talmudic scholars, who came by from a family people had converted, that, and he started late in life actually to learn. So he was confronted by one of his colleagues who knew him from before the Roman decrees. He said, Rabbi Akiva, why are you still teaching? You know, you're putting your life at risk. You know, the death sentence for teaching Torah. And Rabbi Akiva said to him, let me give you a story. I'm giving you a story within a story. So he said, you take a fish. Now, there's a story of a fish who was in the water, and it was a bigger fish in the water chasing it. And outside of the water was a fox watching this whole thing go down. And he said to the fish that was being chased, listen, I see you're in a tough situation. Jump into my arms. I'll get you out of the water, and you'll be free of the worry. You don't have to worry about that fish. So Rabbi Kiva said, you're not serious. Me in your hand outside the water is a guaranteed death sentence. With this fish, there may be a chance I'll escape. There's a chance from some hope. There's no hope of your suggestion. So Rabbi Kiva says, this is God's will. Everything is God's will, even this horrible situation, for whatever the reason it was existing. I will continue to teach Torah. So later, unfortunately, Rabbi Kiva was captured. He was thrown into prison, and he saw in the prison this former comrade, colleague, and they recognized the other, and the other said, Rabbi Kiva said, well, I guess you know why I'm here. He said, yeah, you're teaching Torah. And he said, and you know why I'm here? He said, why? You were teaching Torah too? He said, no, I got caught in a business transaction, which was kind of shady. And now I'm in prison and my life's in a danger. So he said, you, Rabbi Kiva, he said, all right, we both may have the same fate. At least you knew your sacrifice won't go unnoted by God above, and you were doing his will. And for mine, I'm kind of on my own. So I have to say that my influence or my attempt to influence you was not correct. So getting back to the major point is that religious life doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an easier life or things will be more serene, but you have a purpose and you have a reason for making the effort to do the right thing. So going forward with that, we'll jump into the Torah portion for this week, which is called KORECH. For those who are knowledgeable of it, and I know there's many who are well read, but for others, there was a person in KORECH who was from the tribe of Levi, one of the 12 tribes, and his father was Kohas. Kohas had 4 sons. One of them was Amram, and Amram was the father of Moses, or Moshe, Aaron the Kohen, and Miriam, the sister, obviously the sister. And she was also a prophetess. So he had a heavy duty family. And there was, at the end of the chain of the 4 brothers, there was a family called Uziel. So Moses, as you know, became the king of that era. The following tribes were Yitzhar, Hebron, and Uziel. So in the giving of responsibilities in the camp, or the tabernacle, or the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary in the desert, and all the things that went with it, the person who was in charge of the whole tribe of Levi was named Eli Tzafan, and he was from the tribe of Uziel. So Uziel was actually the fourth in line chronologically in the tribes. And there's much power, much credit, influence given to the order of birth. So Korach was from the tribe of Yitzhar, the second, and he finds that in the tribe of Uziel, Eli received the honor of being the foreman of that tribe, and this didn't please him. Okay, so there are laws of Torah of inheritance and who goes first here and goes first there. But again, the only thing is really absolute is God and Him being everywhere and everything. And a few things mentioned before. I do more, but for our purpose. So it was chosen by God that this person in the tribe of Uziel would be the foreman of the tribe. That Korach was upset with Moses and Aaron because he felt that Moses, being the leader, the ultimate leader, made this decision, or he blamed it on Moshe, and he was quite upset about it to the point where he developed a revolution. Now, it's not tangential, but related to these points are, and again, these are things we can use in our own life, that Korach didn't just see that he was a product of Hashem's vision. Maybe he got shortchanged as far as a natural uh, order of things would likely be. So he, instead of becoming I would say, a person who received, I don't want to use damages, but in his eyes that he received some type of insult, he didn't go to Hashem and look at Hashem, but he went to Moses, because here he had someone he could blame, and he could be the victim. So usually when you see people who are blaming others, it's hardly a person who is either a spectator or a problem solver. It's the person who's the quote unquote victim. And he himself doesn't even uh, stop to think that maybe he had some hand in this matter. Maybe there's some reason. By the way, he happened to discover a great wealth, a very big wealth, and he was tremendously rich and tremendously smart. And that wasn't enough for him. And that brings up another saying or another teaching formula we have in Jewish learning, that a person who has 100 wants 200. And once he gets to 200, he wants 400. Now, these aren't ultimately the highest values, the highest characteristic traits, but as I mentioned before, we have conflicting mechanisms in us which make it a challenge to follow Hashem's laws and commandments. And usually we attribute the emotions, characteristics, and say emotions are the ones that are usually more of the animalistic, on the animal side, where a person wants what's pleasurable and avoids what's not pleasurable, even to the point where he doesn't accept the fact he has to make some kind of sacrifice or effort, or he doesn't try to look past what's going on. So these traits are demonstrated here, and the Yetzer Hara, or the other side, evil inclination, or the animal soul, however you want to term you're comfortable with, or Satan, looks for the person's characteristic, his weak characteristic, and he jumps into it. comes toward the RNA, I don't know exactly, but he sees that weak area where the defense mechanism was down, and he goes into it, incorporates himself into it. Because the evil inclination is not physical. You can't push anybody into anywhere physically. And he's not even that spiritual entity where you can command anybody to do the wrong thing. Basically, what you can do is influence or convince a person, and that's where you have the strength and a really skilled. And an example, perhaps, is the story of Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel, remember in the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, first book of the written Torah, 5 books of Moses, that he saw that Cain's sacrifice was accepted better than his. Backtracking even more, rewinding, that it's like Abel's sacrifice was more accepted. So Cain actually gave an average bit of agricultural produce for his sacrifice to God, and Abel gave the best of his flock, the best. So inherently, we see some greater attraction to physical things in the world by Cain than did Abel. And again, that evil influence picked up on that and followed through to the point where Cain became insanely jealous and unfortunately killed Abel. And then, by the way, another attribute of evil shows up. And I bring this up because, yes, we need to know God and how he functions so that we can diagnose or just say examine what happens to us and get a picture of saying, hey, this is not just a chance circumstance, and there may be even some purpose to it. If I can capitalize in the end or have faith in God that it will be so. But also to understand the realm of evil, how evil functions. So Cain develops this anger, hatred, which are known to be characteristics from the side of evil. And a person should maybe start catching himself there. And so as we learn about how evil manifests itself through character traits, it can even be jealousy, it can be anger, it could be envy, it could be pleasure seeking, it could be arrogance, boastfulness, laziness, whole gamut, a whole panorama of different types of emotions. And if a person can recognize or let someone else recognize he's functioning at that level, put a stop to it before it degenerates into a major catastrophe, which it did for Cain. And as I'm trying to get to, the evil inclination has a job to throw man off the course. Basically, it's part of a lot of discussion. The man has free choice to choose to serve God or just it's a convenience. It's there. I'll do it, and to make a meaningful effort. So once evil achieves that, and exemplified by once Cain killed Abel, the evil left him. The evil didn't say, "Hey, partner, we're in this together. You're part of the gang." It's like, "Let's see you later," because God came in and started questioning Abel, Cain, and told him about what he did was actually wrong, and he was hard times are coming ahead. And Cain said, "You know what? I can't survive like this. I'm going to be a victim of any wild animal." So where was his protector evil that he supported? So it's likely many people have experienced where they get influenced by people and they take their way, and then when the deed is done and face the law, so to say, goodbye. I think I mentioned this before, but it's something that needs to be repeated and needs to be contemplated so you catch yourself to your benefit. Okay, so we see part of Korach's downfall is his greed, his envy, not being satisfied, and not recognizing that Shem runs the world, and not logic. If you essentially use logic, because he said he should have been next in line for leadership after Moses and Aaron. So going further, the person is really hard to break that characteristic because he learned it by incorporating his being, I mean, into his being in it during the formative years, or influenced afterwards by people who are very clever. So we have to pay attention to the formative years and raise either a new generation or people who are floundering in their present beliefs and are looking for something else and have Noahide available in whatever way can be presented in any way you can approach a person. And you see that opportunity and think, well, never be interested. You just never know. And remember also that shying away from a religion doesn't mean that a person is going to be an atheist, which is, we'll say, wrong, or a secularist, because neither secularism or atheism have an innate, valid, and proven uh, consistent system of values or ethics, morals. So you, who people have chosen Noahide or following or pursuing, and you choose or listening here, that we have our partnership with the world to bring these people on board, help them to get on board with their searching, and never discount that they may be searching. And you're finding it yourself. You're progressing in your own level, and each one has a talents through being a good neighbor, a good coworker, and really, especially being a good parent and a spouse, and maintain a working relationship with your children and your family, and teaching the morals, the ethics, the behaviors of Noahide, and the source of the Noahide being God and belief in God. And taking this a step further, it could be a long subject, but of the Noahide commandments is probably one that's, well, if you're going to have a meeting together and congratulate each other for getting a mitzvah of the Noahide, that we're not going to have probably, congratulations, you didn't murder anybody today, or you didn't steal from anybody. Just everybody give them a hand. And I mean, unless you had that desire to do it and you resisted it, then you do get a hand. And limb from a living animal, it's kind of tough to really know what you're getting in a grocery store. Most people don't have a farm anymore. Chickens in the backyard. So we have a couple that are recognizable. Of course, it goes without saying, uh, recognizing God, no idol worship, blaspheming God. Remember, that could be linked to helping people who need help, so they don't turn and blame God and try to rebel against God or try to make their point. So again, courts of justice, and I bring this up uh, essentially because there is a chain. The formula is an algorithm that is easier to prevent. Most people know in medicine now, especially to the third party payers, the insurance companies, the government, organizations that pay the doctors in the hospitals, that they are now stressing prevention. Prevention is the main mode the most efficient mode and the successful mode and cost-effective mode for healthcare. So better prevention than ignore a person's problem, than to get ill and then bring him in for treatment and then rehab and then try to get him back into let's say, occupational therapy. So prevention is no doubt the way to go, and this goes with society, that you're not just an average Joe on the street. Try to think of a way that you won't ignore. If you don't ignore, how you can influence and cause prevention rather than things going to law enforcement, the courts, correction and prison systems, other correctional programs, rehab, reentry. So prevention for well-being of humanity as children of God, and you don't have to just do spiritual things that show that you're religious. As a matter of fact, going back to Korach, he also felt that he wanted to be the Kohen Gadol, the great priest. He wanted to have the opportunity to be a tremendous spiritual leader and tremendous connection with God. And you have to remember that there are people who are in those positions. It's essential that we get down and work with the earth, because there are, we call it three modalities in behavior. One is thought, speech, and action. And there are many worlds. But the lowest world is the world of action, um, physicality, and we're granted the opportunity as human beings with our human powers and thoughts, speech, to make that difference in the world. So I'm going to say I wish you a good week and progress and make the world a great place in the revelation of God. God bless you all.